Welcome to another episode of Living Well with Rent Well. I'm one of your co-hosts, TJ Hock. With us today is Adam Larkin. How are you, Adam?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me today.
Excellent. I am so excited for today's conversation. Truly, it's like, man, where to start? So really the topic today will be all around uh, psychometrics, which that's a big fancy word for somebody like myself to say. We have one of our third-party vendors we work with. They're a service-based company, and we've been with them for, probably 8 years. And I remember their service when we had first started working together was okay. It wasn't like world class. And just really in the last year, I was talking to the founder and said, I won't say his name, but, what did you do? Your team is incredible now. Like, it is a complete shift from how they used to provide service until today. And he said, you got to call Adam. We're using something called Culture Index, which is this whole philosophy of psychometrics, and you have to call Adam. So that's when I think we first started talking, and I'm excited to share more about what we do. But before we get into that, I'd love if you could share a little bit more about you and what you do.
Sure. Well, I thank you again for having me. Again, Adam Larkin. I'm from Nashville, Tennessee. The majority of my career has been based in medical device as well as software, leading teams, working with large organizations. What is interesting, TJ, is that from a very early start in my career, had started using psychometrics and human analytics. This is 25 years ago, of identifying what are the strengths and weaknesses of people. And it was something that I've really tracked the majority of my career. And I find it fascinating because it helps us understand who we are and how we interact with others.
So what is psychometrics? Like it's a big fancy word. What really does that mean?
Yeah, psychometrics is, in a simpler form, human analytics. When we talk about human analytics, there's a gentleman by the name of William Moulton Marston back in the 1920s as a psychiatrist, psychologist, working with people that had a lot of mental problems. And he was the type of person that said, I didn't want to work with those people. I want to work with people that have just regular emotions. So he wrote a book called The Emotions of Normal People. And if you break the entire book down, it's how do people behave actively or passively when they perceive their environment to be friendly or antagonistic. Easiest example of that is fight or flight. Some people, when they are threatened, they come back with a fist. Other people shrink back in fear. It's a very simple example of our behavior. And what we know within psychometrics, it's a leading indicator for businesses now, because we don't have a lot of leading indicators for business. We've got pipelines and it's just not a lot of ability to predict how people are going to behave. And psychometrics allows us to get a better understanding how people do behave or will behave in the future.
Yeah. So what I can share, thank you for sharing that breakdown of the definition. I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on why it's so important in business today, the idea of psychometrics. And what I can share from my own experience is, but we're going through we're hiring, right, for some new team members. And this is now our 13th year in business. We're not a product that sits on a shelf. We are service. We are people to people. And what's fascinating is as we're going through the interview process now, you've given us such incredible tools to see more like, well, how's this individual going to show up 6 months from now, 8 months from now? Because everybody sounds and looks good in the beginning, right? Anybody can talk a good game. It's the honeymoon phase. They want to impress everybody. The first month, 2, 3 months, they're checking all the boxes. And then somewhere around month 4, 5, and 6, you're like, what happened? And as a business owner, I feel so much more empowered from there's so many different aspects of where we're using it, but from the recruiting side, being able to see, well, yeah, of course this person sounded great in the interview. They're a salesperson. How could they not sound good? But we're looking for somebody who's more follow through, data, analytics. Really, they do what they say they're going to do. That's what our clients, the landlords we manage, that's what they expect. And so we're using it for recruiting. We're using it for just check-in, like frequent check-ins with our team members. So every quarter, hey, how you doing, right? Because I know there's processes for that. And but I'd be curious to hear what are you seeing? How is this being used in the business world?
So, because it's not a new concept, it's been around for quite a while. In fact, there's a lot of people that probably are using it now. And it's important for business because, as you pointed out, we will hire people. There's a term, and I'm sure you've heard of it before. It's called fake it till you make it.
Sure, yeah.
And unfortunately, the fake it till you make it for business leaders like you and me, TJ, is that we experience the pain associated with someone doing the faking it until they actually make it. And what we have found is that, as you pointed out, the survey results for human analytics gives us a better understanding of who the person will be 6 to 9 months after you've hired them, once the new car smell has drifted away from their initial employment. And to your point, there are certain personalities that can sell anything, especially themselves, in an interview process. In fact, a lot of times those people end up getting hired, and then you don't really see the true impact of what they bring to the table for quite a while. The challenge with that is you end up with turnover, retention. A lot of business leaders really struggle with that right now, and they scratch their heads as to why is it that this person didn't work out? Is it because we didn't set expectations correctly? Did we not really truly hire the right person? Was it the business model? And so what you end up doing is just having the turnover and then starting that whole process over again, which ends up costing, again, leaders like you and me, TJ, a lot of time and money.
Yeah. Well, and you kind of, well, at least I interpreted what you said there as even the onboarding. So once you find the candidate, the tool really helps with, well, how do I train them?
Yeah.
Right? Because somebody might be better. Hey, here's a book, go read it. Somebody else is, well, I'm more hands-on. I need to, and you had shared a case study of how this, it might have been your business, how it helped with some new hires with just the onboarding process of how quickly they could get up to speed.
So human analytics doesn't just start with the hire, it's just not relegated to hiring. It's not just related to communication. It's how people learn, how they make decisions. 50% of the world are hardwired to learn by experience, and 50% of the world are hardwired to learn by just figuring it out. And if you approach someone in a way that's more specific to them, then what you see is a shorter time to competency. TJ, you and I are in active management businesses, meaning we're in the service industry. In the service industry, you are working with people all day long. And how much time and energy have you put into investing in someone, getting them up to a certain speed? Let's say that takes 6 months to be a great property manager, for example. Well, what if you were able to cut that 6 months in half because you had the insights on a person to be able to get that person competent in their role in half the time? I mean, literally, TJ, that's money in your pocket.
Well, the team's probably tired of hearing me say this, but for us, speed is our currency. We're in a business where you've got wafer thin margins and somebody puts through a work order. Like I could go on and on with examples, but to your point, it's like, I didn't even think about that. Even the speed at which we could get somebody onboarded, fully trained, they understand what's going on because we're speaking to them the way that they receive information.
Yeah.
Great example.
Well, we also see retention and turnover as a result of that. If we are treating someone poorly, then what we end up doing is maybe missing on that person's natural skills and abilities. And as a result, they may not respond to us in a way, which then leans into the weaknesses that we potentially have. See, here's the thing. We in our world take businesses from using the golden rule to the platinum rule. Golden rule is treat others the way that you want to be treated, to treat others the way that they want to be treated. TJ, our natural tendency is to treat each other the way that we ourselves want to be treated. And if we do that, we'll be missing on around 95% of the people walking the face of the planet. We also wonder why some of our employees don't respond to us the way that we want, because TJ, we can agree People are different. Some people are highly detailed and really want to get into the minutia of things. And there are other people that the more you get into the minutia, the more they check out. And as a result, if we treat others the way ourselves want to be treated, it actually leads into poor engagement within business. And this is a huge problem in business today. In fact, that would be a challenge for all the listeners. Do I have engaged employees? And what we know is around 67% of the US workforce is disengaged at some level. And the number one reason why that is because the boss isn't treating them well.
67%. Wow.
And that costs US companies in the billions of dollars. Because that engagement, when we have lack of engagement within our organization, our productivity is reduced. In fact, some people will say, and I've seen Gallup statistics, that engaged employees, these are your whistle while you work employees, the ones that come in, they love doing what they do. When they're not at work, TJ, they're talking to people about work. They're your best recruiters. When you have those people, they tend to be more productive by in tune to 70% more than those that come to work solely for the paycheck.
Wow. You kind of answered the next question, because what's going through my head is, why should people care, right? So if an entrepreneur, business owner, team leader within another organization says, I don't have time for that, right? I don't. It sounds kumbaya, foo-foo, like, just show up, do the job, and go home. It's like, my personality profile is not of a sales type, but I just want to shake them and say, you can't afford not to, right? It's the world that we're in right now. It's the management style that wins. I guess I'll put that in air quotes. But what would you say? What would your advice be to people who that's kind of their thought process?
Well, as I understand, your listening audience is very entrepreneurial. And the thing about entrepreneurs, and what I see the majority of the time, is these are highly confident people. There are also people, if you look at the word entrepreneur, actually, if you break it down, means entering into risk. They have a very high risk tolerance. And the thing about it is if you treat everyone around you with that same level of confidence or that same level of risk tolerance, it makes perfect sense to people like you and me. But it doesn't make sense to a lot of people that are incredibly risk averse. The challenge with that is if I treat someone with that same level of confidence and then I leave them on their own, then that confidence at some point, the fake it till you make it part that we referred to earlier, at some point they will fail. And the predictive approach to human analytics lets you know, are we treating that person in that manner, or are we setting them up to fail? The challenge for business leaders like you and me, TJ, is that it takes us 6 to 9 months to figure out if that's actually done. So when you say, do I have time? The answer is you do. You just don't know that you're spending it. Right? And the way that you're spending it is by overcoming those weaknesses that you see within business. I'll give you an example of an entrepreneur that takes charge, makes decisions, doesn't need to really collaborate with many people to move forward, versus someone that can't make a decision unless they ping 2 or 3 other people. Well, if you don't find that out and you put someone in a role that requires snap decision making on a regular basis, the person that ends up making the decision is the business owner, not the person you hired to make that. So you end up being the one that pays the price or takes the time.
Yeah. Interesting. I was going to ask the question, do you see some common leadership challenges? Like, do you come across them pretty regularly for CEOs or other business owners or executives? And how might this process help with that? And I mean, my experience would be I guess this is more just of a share, but, Rob and I, 2 very different personalities and going through this process, I mean, we just kind of laugh at each other like, okay, well, you're all gas, no brake. I'm probably braking gas at the same time. But we've learned how to work together, that if I get stuck, I know where to go to help me get unstuck. Or if he's got tons of ideas going around, okay, well, I'll go back to TJ and let's bring it down to reality a little bit here. And now we kind of just have fun with it, quite frankly. We just laugh at each other.
So one of the challenges with leadership, and there's multiple, we talk about fallacies in leadership on a regular basis. And one of those is promoting from within. In other words, this is what it ends up happening, TJ. We hire a person and they end up being a great individual contributor. Let's say a salesperson, for example. And I can give you a real world example. I used to work with a guy, incredible salesperson. I would actually go on to sales calls with him to learn closing tactics. That's how good he was. I'm a pretty good salesperson myself. But at the end of the day, he performed at such a high level that we decided to promote him into a management position. Now, this guy was a hunter, pure hunter. He was strategic, decisive. He knew exactly where he was going to go. When he went into sales calls, he knew what his goal was. He knew what his backup goal was, and he knew how to overcome objections incredibly well. Wow. So we decided to translate that into a management role. But here's the thing. When you get pushed into a sales management role, you're no longer the hunter. You're now actually a farmer or motivator or coach of other people. So what I did in promoting this individual was I pulled the control away from him being that individual contributor to now having to spread it across multiple people. And as a result, he ended up becoming a tyrant because he no longer had the control of his own destiny. And what he ended up doing, he ran off his entire sales team that was underneath me. And what I ended up having to do was hire back an entire sales team, which impacted my numbers incredibly that year.
Oh, gosh.
And so these are the types of challenges that leaders will come across when they're like, should I promote this person? Should I promote that person? Because in our brains, we're thinking that's great for culture. When in fact, we have certain employees, they don't want to move up in the organization at all. In fact, they're happy to come in and do the exact same thing every single day and be happy doing it, and not necessarily looking for a promotion, where people like you and me, TJ, we're always looking for more. We're always wanting to take the next step. There is a significant difference.
Yeah, I've learned that lesson the hard way myself, because I don't understand, how are you okay doing the same thing over and over and every day? And I promoted somebody and it didn't work out, and I mean, you live and you learn, but going through this process helps you learn a little faster.
Well, TJ, that goes back to your concept of time. Adam, I don't have time to look at survey results and then take action on it. But you actually just pointed out in that one statement is you live and learn. Well, that learn has a cost.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. What other considerations should a company take when looking at human analytics or personality assessments? There's so many out there. What are your recommendations?
So when I do speaking engagements, podcasts like this, my goal is to create some level of compelling reason for people to consider human analytics. In fact, that's the challenge that I give to most business owners, which is to set time on your schedule to dig into this further with your organization. And because there are so many of them out there, what you end up doing is getting a lot of information. In fact, there is a personality assessment out there called Myers Briggs. Most people will be very familiar with it. It is a very elaborate survey, and you get a very long report behind it, which is actually, like a lot of the survey results, very good. The challenge is that people like you and me want to get data or information and do something with it. If we don't do anything with it, then what we end up doing is getting a nice 50-page report of a somewhat accurate result of describing your personality. And if we did that, TJ, that would be like you going to the doctor complaining of major leg pain, getting an x-ray at the doctor, which is data. The doctor reads the data and says, well, TJ, I hate to tell you this, but you have a broken leg. Well, thank you, TJ, for coming in. Would you mind paying Sally at the front desk, and have a nice day? Right? If you don't mobilize the data or do something with it, then really all it is a fancy report. So my recommendation, or the consideration that entrepreneurs, business owners, CEOs should take, is what do the people do with the business? In my particular case, it's finding the right type of person to advise based on the data. So here's the thing, TJ, as an advisor, I don't make decisions for the CEOs of the clients that I serve. What I do is I provide the interpretation and mobilization of that data to help them make better decisions on their human capital. So that would be the first thing. The second thing is just from a standpoint of time. Some of these surveys take an hour to complete. Some of them take 2 hours to complete, and you put a personality assessment in them. And like I put it in front of you, TJ, it doesn't have a whole lot of patience. I wonder if you'll actually do a 2-hour long assessment. The nice thing about having shorter term assessments, the 10 to 15 minutes ones, which most people have a short attention span these days. We're in a TikTok world. Yeah. And so that would be a consideration as well. And lastly is the survey assessment moving the business forward? If it's not, and you're just looking at the data to understand your people, but we're not actually moving it to grow your business, whether it is top line earnings, capitalization, or your bottom line profitability, I would strongly consider, if you're looking at any human analytics, is to really challenge the person that you're talking to that's presenting it to you. How are you going to help me use this to grow or help the earnings within my business?
Yeah. Well, and what I love about working with you is, again, if we're going back to talk about all the different types that are out there, is we have a partnership, right? So it's not just, great, did an assessment, looked at it, probably know what it means, and it sits right over there. You're available to talk to dialogue with, hey, am I missing something? What can I look for? To me, that is just a whole nother level of a service. And I mean, if you were to look at my personality type, because I am gas and brake together, I need that conversation at times. If it's not crystal clear to me, I need that help. And it's just been a game changer for us, truly.
Well, as a COO of your business, I am also a C-level player as an advisor. And it's very important for me to have that partnership. I am not an HR consultant. I am not someone that just bogs myself down into the hiring process on a regular basis. What I am is looking at business from a CEO level perspective. Where are your business numbers going? Are we exceeding them? Are we falling short? And trying to identify why, so that you can make actionable decisions to help your business move forward. That's why it is a true partnership rather than someone just getting a survey from me and what we call survey jockeys out in the field, or management consultants that are just giving you their opinions on what they see. We read data and then provide that data and action item to you so that we can maintain that partnership over the course of time.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love it. Adam, is there anything else? We're kind of at our time here. Is there anything else you'd like to share with our listeners?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, the compelling reason for anyone to look into human analytics, just as I did about 25 years ago, is to determine, is this something that would benefit my business? And I guarantee your competitors are now. We believe, TJ, that when our kids and our grandkids replace us around the business table, that most companies will be using psychometrics to predict financial outcomes. And we believe that a lot of companies are right now. So if you're not setting time aside to at least dig into it, your competitors are, I guarantee it. Yeah. And if you would like to get a free hour diagnostic on your team, your leadership team, or top performers, and maybe even people that would be struggling with their current work allocation, you can reach out to me directly. My email address is alarkin, that's ALARKIN, at cultureindex.com. Or you may also contact me on my cell. That's 865-360-5769. Wow. And I'd be happy to set up that demo for you.
I've never had anybody share their cell phone number before.
I'm happy to do so. That's how I connect with my people.
I love it. Well, Adam, really appreciate it. Thank you so much for sharing. We could spend hours on this topic, but thanks for doing 24 minutes with me.
Absolutely. Thank you again for having me, TJ. I really appreciate it.
Got it. Talk soon.
All right.
Thank you for listening to Living Well with Rentwell. We hope you loved that episode.
Please be sure to head over to our website at rentwell.com/vision. We're giving away our free program called Vision Through Purposeful Action. If you're a busy person, if you struggle with finding the time and priorities, or if you're experiencing procrastination and overwhelm, this free course will help you with that.
We wish you a blessed day. Thank you for tuning in, and check in later.